Welcome back to the Wandering Naturalist, everybody, as we continue our Halloween special for zombies. And today, we're not going to just talk about zombies, we're going to talk about zombies.
That didn't sound any different.
That's probably my... It is different. Instead of B-I-E-S, it's B-E-E-S, because we're going to talk about how bees...
Can be zombies.
Well, I disagree a little bit that they're zombies. I don't think they actually are.
This was the one that I had to fight for because Brandon had a good list. And I was like, we can't talk about zombies without zombies.
Like, they're not really zombies. They're not being mind controlled. But you found some new evidence that maybe they are. And like you said, if they're called zombies, how can we not talk about them on a podcast called Zombees?
They have to be included. And then you have this awesome connection for who our guests are today to talk about this.
Yes, I am so excited because we have a couple of students here and they worked with a professor out in California on a zombie citizen science project. And so they're going to tell us a little bit about what are zombies, what was their project like, and the work they did to raise money and actually help beekeepers in the area search for these zombies. I mean, the work they did was very inspiring, so I'm excited to talk to them about it. And they are right here. So would you two mind just introducing yourself briefly? Do you mind telling us something, like a little something about yourselves?
My name's Evie. And I enjoy reading and playing video games and hanging out with my friends.
Awesome.
I'm AJ, and I prefer eating.
Eating
My
is
kind
a
of
good
person.
hobby. I like it. You have done work on zombies, B-E-E-S.
We can stop saying that now, I think.
I think we probably can, hopefully.
We're good.
Can you tell us a little bit about what got you interested in zombies?
Well, actually, Brandon, you did. At the time, we were on a robotics team named the JP2 Rock Slides.
And that was for Lego Robotics, correct?
Yeah, First Lego League.
Okay.
It's a really great program. And we were studying human-animal relationships that year because the theme was animal allies.
And this is a misconception I had until you all kind of explained this to me. Lego Robotics isn't just building a robot. You have to build a robot as part of it, but then there's also an extra project where you all have to kind of find a way to help improve something, correct?
Yeah.
And so that's where this came in, was animal allies, and you had to come up with some kind of solution for our animal allies.
Yep, and that's 25% of your score, actually, is your
Really?
project. You do a 5-minute skit, you answer questions about it. It's a really great part of it. So after we came to you and you gave us this great talk, we were just fascinated with the whole zombies thing. And so we decided to, I think almost unanimously, for our research project, to keep going after the zombies and trying to find a way to help.
So can you tell me then, I'm assuming you went out and did some research about what a zombie actually is then. What is a zombie? What causes them?
Well, a zombie occurs when a special forward fly, called the zombie fly.
It's called the zombie fly?
Yes.
All right, so that's more evidence of this has to be in our podcast.
Apocephalus borealis.
That was real. I'm impressed. You just said that with
No stuttering.
I have
Yeah.
notes to pronunciate it 4 different ways so that I don't screw it up. And he just did it.
That was amazing.
All right, keep going. I just had to. That was really great.
Okay, so the zombie fly, which is about the size of a fruit fly, lays its eggs inside of a bee, and then the fly larvae then grow and eat the bee from the inside out.
This sounds kind of like our horsehair worm.
Mm-hmm.
And then it causes the bee to behave strangely, like flying out at night, walking around in circles, and generally acting like a zombie, before eventually killing the bee. Then the larvae hatch out of the bee, creating new zombie flies, which go on to infect more bees.
It starts all over again.
And I think that's how they got the name zombie, is because of they're out at night, which is really unusual for bees. And like you said, they're walking in circles and kind of stumbling. It almost looks like you would imagine a human stumbling if they're a zombie. The bee is almost moving that way.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. So it's killing off honeybees, but I mean, there's lots of bees in a hive. Why is this a problem?
So it's a problem because bees actually pollinate 1/3 of the world's food. And so if they die, so does a lot of our food supply. You may not know this, but bees are actually transported all around the country at different times of the year to help pollinate crops.
Yeah, they're put in these massive semi-trucks, and hives from all over are transported together across the country, right?
Yep. So the vast farming operations around the country keep bees in high demand almost year-round, and it's up to commercial beekeepers to make sure farmers have their pollinators. In the winter, commercial beekeepers ship most of their bees to pollinate the almond blossoms, which require more than half of the U.S.'s honeybees. So if the zombie...
And that's in California.
Mhm.
And then I'm assuming that then in the summer they come back up in this area?
Or, yeah, whatever area they came from originally.
Okay.
And then, so if the zombie fly has infected a hive that's moving, then it's going to be infected to the places it's moving to all around the country as well.
And this forward fly is native to North America, correct?
I believe so.
So it was already here, but it was new for it to be infecting honeybees.
Yeah, you did some
Yeah,
research, Angela.
I did some research in it. So I think naturally it's more like bumblebees and native bees. And because honeybees are from Europe, it was new for them to discover that. And I think these students, they worked with the guy that I was reading about, which I think is super cool, that discovered this in honeybees.
Yep.
Yeah, so you had to do an Animal Allies project to help people. So how does that tie in with zombies and with this professor that Angela was talking about?
When we went out to zombiewatch.org and learned about how we could spread and improve testing, we found instructions for an electric light trap.
So zombiewatch.org is a website where people can go on and figure out how do you test for zombies in your area.
Yep.
Because the professor wants to kind of get a map of where are zombies across the country because they're spreading, even though they're native to our country, they're spreading to new parts of our country. They're infecting honeybees in new parts of our country. And he wants to document that so he knows how to address the problem, correct?
Yep.
Okay, and so that's the website you went to. And you said that there's an electric light trap?
Yes, they have instructions for an electric light trap so you can trap honeybees with that.
Why are we using an electric light trap?
Because the honeybees fly out at night and they're
Okay.
attracted to the light. They'll go fly around the light and most of the time die in it. So it'll get stuck in the trap and it'll be so disoriented it can't get back out.
Okay, and then you can monitor that bee body then to see if an adult or a pupa forward fly comes out of it.
Yep.
Yep.
And then
Okay.
you can send the information to zombiewatch.org and they can put it up on the map.
So that sounds like a pretty straightforward way to go about doing it. How did you, or what improvements did you bring to this process?
Well, when we made some and distributed them to beekeepers, they said their hives weren't near electricity and it wasn't very practical. So we came up with a solar-powered version instead. Our solar light traps turn automatically at night, attracting the infected zombies. And the zombies will fall into the trap, and like I said before, they're so disoriented they can't get back out.
That's awesome. And you worked with a professor to kind of talk with him about your design, correct?
Yep.
How did you just communicate with him through email or?
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. And what did he think of your design?
He really liked it.
Yeah. Well, I imagine it makes it a lot easier to test now if instead of being tied to where there's electricity, you could do it anywhere in the field. Because I don't know that I've ever seen a beehive by an electrical outlet.
Nope.
You don't normally want beehives by your buildings. So very cool. That wasn't the only thing you did, though, was it? Like you came up with this new bee trap design, working with a professor. And how did you then expand on that?
Well, we talked to many people and beekeepers as we could about the problem and about what to do to help. Then we talked to beekeepers at the Sherburne Wildlife Refuge Festival and the Now Then Threshing Show, as well as doing presentations and answering questions for local beekeeping associations and 4-H clubs. We posted the information online, emailed groups, started the GoFundMe page, and we contacted beekeeping associations in many other states where there was little to no testing.
So has it been found in Minnesota yet?
No, it hasn't. But there has been one confirmed case of an infected bee on the border of South Dakota and Minnesota.
So nearby.
So you did all this education, but then you even took it a step further, and you wanted to make sure beekeepers could have these traps, right? So what did you do to help solve that issue?
So another thing we did is to raise money so we could send out our new solar traps for free to increase testing. We won a $400 agricultural research grant and started a GoFundMe page that raised $300, including a donation from Dr. Haffernick, which is the scientist who discovered the zombie fly.
And the one who's running Zombie Watch.
Yes.
Okay.
So with the money we raised, we were able to send free traps sent for testing in Minnesota, Illinois, Colorado, Louisiana, Missouri, New York, and California.
That's amazing. So you sent out all these traps to these beekeepers so they could test for it when they weren't using those tests before. And you built the traps yourselves, too.
Yep.
That is incredible.
Citizen science at its finest.
And then you did this as part of your Lego Ally project. How did that end up turning out?
So for our research project, we ended up winning first place in research in our division at the state tournament. And we won third overall in the state. And we moved on to the FLL World Championship in St. Louis, Missouri.
Really? So you actually went to the World Championship for Lego Robotics with this project.
Yep.
You had to feel pretty proud after that.
Yeah, and while we were there, we talked to all the other teams from all over the world about our project and stuff like that, and everyone just really thought it was fascinating. Like, we had a really unique project, and we were talking to people there, and a beekeeper, actually, who was from, like, the New York area, and said that her bees, she'd actually seen bees that had been walking around and stumbling like that in her area.
Really?
Yeah, so that was really neat to see it, like, verified, that there's some people out there that have seen these things.
That is very cool. And then I think you told me that you also did something with an agricultural team?
So after the robotics season was over, a few of our team members also formed a Science of Agriculture team through 4-H and continued our project there as well. We won the Excellence in Presentation Award and third place at state, again, resulting in $500 college scholarships for each of us.
That's amazing. Very cool. And do you already have your colleges picked out?
No, not yet.
Okay. You've got a few more years before that. So you said they're not in Minnesota yet. They've been found in South Dakota. If they're not in Minnesota, why is it so important to have all these beekeepers testing?
If it's a big problem for bees, it's a big problem for all of us. We've estimated the zombie fly kills approximately 4 million honeybees a year,
That's a lot.
and may be a contributing factor to colony collapse disorder. And with bees pollinating 1/3 of the world's food, that's a big impact. In fact, it has been estimated that if bees keep dying at the current rate, they'll all be extinct by 2035.
That doesn't sound like a happy world at all.
Nope.
So if you like apples, cranberries, melons, avocados, onions, grapefruit, oranges, broccoli, who likes broccoli, blueberries, cherries, almonds, and many other foods, even pumpkins, you should care about the health of honeybees.
And they've got a lot of other issues facing them, so I imagine this just kind of adds to the exponential list of things working against pollinators.
Yeah, again, it's that adding more and more stresses on that we've talked about in so many of our podcasts. Is there anything else you want us to know about zombies?
Yeah, anyone can be a zombie hunter and put together a light trap kit to test for zombies in your area. You can go out to zombiewatch.org, that's ZOMBEE watch.org, to learn more about the zombie fly and what you can do to help bees. You can also contact our team through our website, cheercofirst.org, that's SHERCO first.org, to request a solar light trap kit or instructions for how to make your own. We still have a few free traps left.
Do you know about how many traps you made?
It's been a few years, so I don't really remember. Probably 50 or more.
Very cool. Well, the work you did really is inspiring. I'm so impressed that you found about this problem. You really went above and beyond. You not only came up with a solution, but you raised money. You sent these to farmers and to beekeepers so that they could start surveying for it, because unless we know where these forward flies are and where they're impacting honeybees, we can't address the issue. I can't believe all the work you put into it. It's very impressive, and I think you all should be very proud of yourselves. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing this with us. I really appreciate it.
Promising future for you both.
Absolutely. So now we've talked about a lot of animals. We've really just scratched the surface of animals infected by zombies. We could keep going on and on, but I think it's time to switch gears a little bit and talk about how plants can be turned into zombies.
Yeah, so our forestry supervisor, Dan Comerford, is going to be joining us again to talk about zombie plants.
I am really excited for that. Welcome back to The Wandering Naturalist. We've now heard about all of these animals that get zombieism. We're going to talk a little bit about plants now. And so, Angela, we're back with another one of your coworkers, and I think he needs a special award for being one of our most reoccurring guests.
This is the third
Yeah.
visit from Dan, so that is the most. No pressure, Dan.
No pressure. Okay.
But we better so Dan is our forestry supervisor. Can you just introduce yourself a little bit and what you do at the parks?
Sure. Well, I'm glad to be back here. My name is Dan. I'm a forestry supervisor here. And I work in our forestry section, dealing with both forest ecology and forest reforestation, and also shade tree management.
Now, my understanding is that you kind of have an interest in nature zombies. And so that's part of why we asked you here.
Or it might be that his coworker kind of roped him into it.
That could be too.
We'll just be honest.
Do you have a favorite zombie, either plant or animal?
I think that cordyceps fungus, that's the most fascinating one for me.
It's pretty, and just how wide ranging it is.
Have you found it ever out in the parks or
No.
in the Yeah, I want to find it.
It's that flies in my yard last year.
Lucky.
Do you have a favorite zombie movie?
I like the old school Night of the Living Dead.
Okay. Yeah, it's what's set, off
Classic.
the trend. Yeah. When I think about zombies, I think about animals. I don't really think about plants, but apparently there are plants that get turned into zombies. Can you tell us about a few of those?
So to be fair, it's a plant with an animal's help, often insect vectored. But
Those insects.
yeah, they do everything.
Yeah.
I don't know. One we see around Minnesota and around the whole country, the whole world for that matter, are galls. I'm sure you've seen galls hanging from different trees.
Like bumps in the stems of plants, or are
Yep.
in trees too?
Yeah, there's a million different kinds. There's in herbaceous plants, but also in forest trees. There are leaf vein galls. There's stem galls, twig galls. I know a lot of the prairie plants you work with.
Goldenrods.
Yep. And usually they're created by insects or mites to the advantage of the insect or mite. So often in trees, an insect the egg might be laid on a leaf, for instance, and then the developing insect secretes some chemicals that basically make the plant go into overdrive with growth hormones and kind of capture or accelerate the growth of the different plant organs to make a home or a protective area for the insect. So a classic example is some of the oak apple galls you see hanging. I'm sure you've seen them
my
underfoot
gosh.
when you're on the trails.
We get so many calls and emails. I think like every year, people are always like, "What is this? What is this?" And
Yeah.
it'll even be friends and family that'll send me pictures, and they're like ripping it open and just completely dumbfounded, don't know what it is.
And it's literally a leaf that's grown into a ball on the oak tree, which it's oak apple, but it looks really, really cool.
Looks amazing, and if you cut one open with an X-Acto knife and really carefully cut it in half, it's kind of amazingly engineered. There's a tiny little insect suspended right in the middle, protected with all these filaments, and right in the middle of the void of the sphere, so it's protected from impact, but also from predators.
Like a natural bubble wrap almost.
Well, and it's being fed by the plant too, isn't it?
Yep. It's providing an environment where it's sheltered, where it can continue to feed on the plant inside there.
So it basically, when the adult lays the egg, it releases hormones or something that hijacks the plant, forces it to grow a home for this creature and feed this creature.
Yep.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I imagine that's to be very specific. Like, the what is it that does the oak apples?
Usually, I'm pretty sure that's a cinnamid wasp. Many of the cinnamid wasps are the gall formers on oaks.
So I imagine then that if it's taking over a species of oak tree, it can't then go form the gall on a goldenrod.
Right. They're very, very obligate. So there's a million different wasps for all the different tree species out there.
Well, if you're using hormones, you have to be super specific because that's going to be down to the individual species.
Mm-hmm.
And so then there's all these creatures then that are making these galls in these different plants. That's really cool.
Yeah, another one that we see a lot around here in Minnesota is on silver maple. It's the velvet gall, and it looks kind of on the underside of silver maple leaves. You'll see these fuzzy red kind of tendrils that look velvety.
Yep.
That's caused by a mite, much tinier than a gall wasp, but for the same reason. They're basically making a sheltered area for them to feed.
Well, I know I've seen like a bunch of there'll be 10 or 15 small galls on the bottom of maple leaves. They'll be like these little red galls that I've seen before. And, goldenrods were mentioned. And
Yep.
so
I think another neat one we have is jumping oak gall.
what is jumping oak gall?
I haven't
So
heard that one.
you'll find it on the underside of oak leaves. It looks like all these tiny little Cheerio type galls, a little smaller, but that shape. And it looks like kind of deformed and blistered for a while. And then late in the summer, they all fall off. And under certain conditions, they'll all fall off and they'll be collected in the gutter on a hard surface. And you'll see them all popping up and down like popcorn. And bouncing.
Really?
Yep. There's a little insect in there moving around, really similar to how a Mexican jumping bean would jump around with a larvae inside that.
That's awesome.
Yep. So we have it right here in Minnesota.
And is that growing off the stems or?
I believe it's either it's some of the veins on the underside of the leaf,
Okay.
but also just the leaf tissue itself is kind of all across the underside of the leaf.
Wow, I've never seen that. So we've got galls then, which is some kind of insect or might hijacking the plant to provide a home and food. But then you also mentioned phytoplasmas.
This is the one I was looking forward to.
I don't know what a phytoplasma is.
Ugh.
Before we talk about phytoplasms, can I talk about one more gall?
Oh, yes, please do.
It's one more gall-forming insect. I find it the most fascinating. We don't have it here,
Okay.
but it's called the Cryptkeeper gall.
Oh,
That
yes.
sounds very ominous.
So have you guys talked about hyperparasitoids? Or
no.
Parasitoids
We've talked
that
about
are-
parasitoids a little bit.
Sure. So there's multiple tiers where you could have a parasitoid feeding on a parasitoid.
Yes, yeah, okay. So a hyperparasitoid is a parasitoid to a parasitoid.
Correct.
Inception.
Yeah, that's special.
So you'll have these synapid gall wasps in the southeast of the country that form structures like the apple gall.
Okay.
But for some of them, there's the wasp inside there, and the wasp gets parasitized by a Cryptkeeper wasp that gets in there. And basically, the Cryptkeeper wasp turns the gall wasp into a zombie, increases its growth rate, and then manipulates it to start eating its way out, but only make a hole big enough for its head to get stuck. And then it gets stuck there, plugging the hole.
Okay.
Then the
it's
Cryptkeeper
trapped.
wasp, so it's trapped. Then the Cryptkeeper wasp eats it alive from the inside, and then finally burrows out through its head and flies off.
Oh my gosh.
Is there a video of this somewhere?
I'm sure there is. You
my
can find the galls with the heads kind of stuck in there. And the last thing I'll say is what might be even more fascinating is there's some theories about why the Cryptkeeper wasp makes it so the gall wasp gets its head stuck
Yeah,
there.
why would it do that?
Maybe there's another tier of hyperparasitoid looking for the Cryptkeeper wasp, and if it can keep the hole blocked with the head of its
can't get
victim,
in and out.
It can't get in and out.
So it's trying to keep from being zombified.
That's
or
right.
eaten. That is crazy.
Yep.
That is really,
I couldn't
really
take
cool.
another level of it. I don't know what you would call that.
hyper.
Oh my goodness.
Hyperactive hyperdrive. So awesome. So we have these galls then, which that Cryptkeeper one is amazing and incredibly creepy. What about you mentioned something called phytoplasmas? I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, they're a unique life form. It's a type of bacteria, no cell wall, just the cell membrane. So this bacteria, it's vectored by a type of insect called the leafhopper. There's many different kinds of leafhoppers around the country and in Minnesota, and a leafhopper has piercing, sucking mouthparts and
Yep.
basically sucks the sap out of
It's
leaves.
kind of like a mosquito for plants.
Yep. And but if it's infected with this phytoplasma inside it, when it's sucking the sap out of a leaf, the phytoplasma can then get into the leaf of the host plant. And often, then the phytoplasma will kind of hijack the plant and make it a breeding ground for more phytoplasma and encourage more leafhoppers to visit.
So how does it encourage more leafhoppers to visit?
So the mechanism, it's pretty complicated. I don't fully understand it. But one of the big symptoms in many plants is it stops the plant from making flowering structures.
So it'd be sterile and wouldn't be able to reproduce.
Exactly. So the leafhoppers often they prefer to feed on leaf material. And in a lot of our perennial herbaceous plants, once a plant starts making flowers and going to seed, they're not putting on as many tender leaves. So if the insect can kind of convince the plant to not do the whole seed making thing, just make leaves, it will stay there, feed more leafhoppers and spread the disease around.
Wow.
Yeah, I was reading an article about research in the UK and was, talking about how phytoplasma turns their plant host into the living dead. Essentially, it's killing the plant, modifies so the petals of the flowers are essentially turned into leaves.
Yep.
And then it attracts these insects and it just kind of full circles because it needs those insects to come back to complete the life cycle.
Yeah. So
That's
it's
amazing.
It's common around here in some of our prairie plants, some of the aster family plants. And you'll see weird growths. You'll see what Angela mentioned, the flowers turning into leaves, but also different types of witches' brooms in stunted and yellowed appearance. So aster yellows is a common phytoplasma disease here. We also, in the trees, we have ash yellows and elm yellows. Not quite as much of a zombie story, but it's definitely a major disease for those trees.
Wow. So it's completely hijacking this plant and just turning it into a food source. Mm-hmm. That's really, really cool.
One other interesting one that I read about and didn't really think about, and maybe it's more of a vampire, so I guess you can be the judge on this, is dodder. And so this is one that we see out in the prairies where it's not a green plant. It's more yellow in color, I would see, and really stringy, more like a vine. And that's parasitic to other plants. Mm-hmm. But it does this manipulation, too, that new research is showing that it can manipulate the genes of the plants it takes over to lessen its defense mechanisms. So plants have these defense mechanisms to ward off parasites and insects that will hopefully reject or shoo them away in a sense. But if some of these parasitic plants can actually manipulate those plants to turn that defense mechanism off.
Kind of make them weaker.
Yeah.
Really?
Wow.
Nature's really, it's just fascinating. A little scary, too, sometimes.
Well-
I mean, it can't do it to us, obviously, but it's amazing that's just crazy.
Well, like we said with the fungus, we don't think of plants thinking because they don't have a brain.
Yeah.
But really, they are doing some fascinating things, communicating. The insects are coming in and severing that communication ability sometimes as well.
That's awesome.
So they're like leafy puppets.
So I kind of feel like we have to have people write into us, let us know, is daughter a vampire or is it a zombie? Because I'm kind of
creepy either
intrigued
way.
now. Maybe a little bit of both. And I kind of feel like now our next October Halloween special has to be vampires in nature. It's
along that same line.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dan, for coming in and sharing with us about these plant zombies. It's just something that I don't really think about, so it was really cool to get that perspective.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, and next we're going to talk about our cultural history with zombies because, I mean, we're obsessed with zombies. That had to
We
start
are.
somewhere, so we have Zach Mullis from The Landing coming to share that with us. So tune in next time, folks.